Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we're going to be having a whole lot of fun learning about something that I think is really important if you've ever considered being a solo founder, if you've considered setting up a side hustle, if you want to start your own business. This is the kind of stuff that is going to show up no matter what kind of business you're building. And to help us learn about it, I'm bringing to the show Julianna Lamb. Julianna, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
I'm so thrilled to have you here. So for folks who aren't familiar with you and your work, can you give us a bit of a breakdown of who you are, what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Julianna. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Stytch. Stytch is a modern platform for authentication and fraud detection and prevention. My co-founder and I met working together at Plaid. I was on their engineering team and he was on the product team. And we ended up building out a bunch of auth experiences in-house there. I did it again at another company and decided to do it for a third and final time so that other people didn't have to suffer through all of the annoying nitty-gritty pieces of authentication and fraud detection and prevention. And so we started Stytch about 4 years ago. We have a variety of different auth products, sort of different platforms too, whether you're building a consumer app, a B2B app, and then we have a fraud suite as well.
Okay.
So excited to show off the B2B platform today and talk a little bit about how you can build authentication into multi-tenant applications.
Yes. Okay. And so before we get into the actual building, I have a couple questions because I feel like whenever I start talking about the idea of SaaS or software as a service, if anybody has never heard the acronym SaaS before, there are a few phrases that come up that I feel like I know what they are, but I don't always have the right words lined up to the right concepts. So I just want to dig into this a little bit. So you just said multi-tenancy. So can you talk a little bit about what that is and how is that different from other approaches to building apps?
Yeah, so if you're building for consumers, you're often building a single tenant app where all of those users are in the same sort of database, right? It's one sort of organization that you have for all of your end users. In B2B, you're often using a multi-tenant architecture, meaning that you have sort of different tenants for each of your different customers so that you can, segment data, put different requirements in place for those organizations because each of your customers is essentially a different entity that you're supporting. And each of those has their own pool of users. So instead of having that sort of one conjoined user pool, like you might in a consumer context, you have sort of those segmented user pools that in the case of B2B are often tied to your customers and their employees.
Gotcha. Okay. So then that would be like when I sign up for Twitter, that's a single tenant app. So I'm one of the millions of Twitter users. We're all on the same website. We're all sharing the same UIs. But when I go into, say, my Netlify account or my Google account or my Google for work, not Gmail, when I log in, I have my multiple accounts. And so that's a multi-tenant then. So like when in Netlify, for example, I log in and I've got my account, and in that I have a few collaborators, and then I have access to another account. And in that one, it's just me and one other person, and I have access to one of their sites, but not all of them. And so it's kind of like I'm moving in between an organization, basically. Like I'm logging into the organization's instance of Netlify as opposed to the global Netlify app. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. And so this concept of like organizations and users and stuff, I feel like this can get a little bit, it can get kind of challenging for devs as they work on like, what do you focus on? Like, should I be building user accounts and then I like the users create orgs and you attach them to those orgs? Do you do the orgs first? Like, what's the architecture that I should be looking for as a developer to make sure that I don't tie myself in knots later on?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So yeah, in that sort of consumer example, the user is like the top level entity, right? That's sort of like the object that you care about. They're setting their own settings, all of that. When we're talking about the B2B use case, it's often the organization that should be sort of the primary object that you're building your data model on top of. Because if you think about it, like your customers are going to be the sort of like persistent entities, and their users, their employees, right? They might come and go. You might need to be able to access multiple organizations, right? Like that Netlify example you gave. So the user is something that has membership to those organizations. And so if you start with a user first data model in B2B, you end up kind of having to like reverse engineer this and build a lot of logic in terms of like, how do you share user accounts? Are you able to actually have multiple accounts, or do you have to start doing hacky things like Jason+1 at gmail.com or whatever URL you have, right? Or can you do it in a way where you can sort of have that organization first? They can have then their own settings, right? Maybe one organization wants to require that you sign in with 2FA. The other one is fine if it's just like OAuth login. All of that can really like spiral, right? And really it's organization that should be in control of those settings. They should be in control of who belongs to their organization. It's not the user that's sort of the primary thing that you're dealing with there.
Gotcha. So that makes sense. So, and you know, as you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that, you know, on my Netlify account, the organization is like, I'm the admin there. I have control over everything. But when I log into, for example, earlier this week, I was working on a site with Lynn Fisher, and I logged into her. I got added to her Netlify account where I'm not an admin, and I don't have any privileges except for the one site that I'm added to. So if my user was like the primary object, how would you store, like, you know, it would, so if my user is the primary object and then you have like an organizations array with like permissions arrays, and that seems like that would be really hard versus having the organization be at the top and then you just add the users. So, okay, this makes sense. I like this because it helps me disambiguate something, because I feel like there's a lot of jargon and acronyms that get thrown around when we talk about SaaS, and, you know, people will say B2B, B2C, they'll say multi-tenant, they'll, you know, think all these words. But ultimately what we're doing when we think about that is we're thinking about who is the primary customer. So in Netlify, the primary customer is the business or the organization that is getting the account, and then they grant users access to that account. Whereas in Twitter, which would be like a B2C example, you have users, and there is no concept of like an organization really, or not in any like account-based sense of the word, you know? So you end up with this, it's just a way of thinking about who's really the decision maker, who's structuring the like you mentioned settings and things like that, and then architecting the app with that permission hierarchy in mind.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's
Okay.
A really good way to describe it.
Excellent. Okay. Now that's helpful, because it's one of those, you know, I always get kind of nervous that I'm using words wrong. And so being able to think about it, and you know, the words are just the way that we organize the information so that we get a good result for what we're building. Okay, cool. So then the other one that I hear a lot that I want to make sure that we're clear on is RBAC, which is short for role-based access control. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So when we talk about this, I've seen a bunch of different models for this, where there's roles, there's, I think PBAC was one, permission-based access control. There was there's a bunch of other ones that I've seen as well. So what is that ultimately, like, what are we ultimately choosing when we kind of lean into a role-based versus permissions-based versus whatever-based access control?
Yeah. So For role-based access controls, you're really starting with sort of the role as the primary thing, and then the permissions that are sort of attached to that role will then be consistent across users. So if I am an admin, for example, that probably gives me permission to take about every action I could in a dashboard, right? It sort of gives me those superpowers. But then if I'm maybe an ordinary member, I might not have permissions, for example, to update billing settings or maybe to invite other users, kind of just depending on what application you're building, what makes sense. But oftentimes there's sort of, a set number of roles that you want to enable for your product so that people can have different access levels. And then the access then is sort of determined on, a per resource or per page or whatever sort of your breakdown is. You can kind of customize that, right, for the functionality that your app supports and say, okay, this is what an admin gets access to. These are their permissions. This is what a member gets access to, their permissions. Maybe you have, read only where they can view things, but they don't have any write permissions, and sort of coupling those permissions and roles together.
Got it. Okay, cool. So today, what I would love to learn is if I want to build my own SaaS app, I'm going to need all of these things. I'm going to need the ability to let people log in. And I probably want them to be able to log in with, email password or OAuth, or maybe some combination of those things. Maybe there's some other stuff that I don't know about that we can try. And then I also need them, like I want it to be a B2B app. Like my thought is that anything I would build, I would probably want you to be able to collaborate with somebody, but in that kind of organization-based thing where you can group your projects based on like what org owns them. So we're probably looking at the B2B, the org-first architecture. And I tend to write a lot of JavaScript. So I'm thinking, like, is there any... so we're going to be using Stytch today. So maybe before I get too deep into the weeds here, let's talk a little bit about what Stytch is. You kind of gave us the high level. So maybe what I'll ask is, so if Stytch is going to give us the org first structure, and it's got the RBAC, it's got the auth, it's got you mentioned fraud detection and a handful of other features. Is it for a certain stack? Do I need to write JavaScript to use Stytch, or can I use it with anything? Or are there any, what are the kind of the guidelines for it?
Yeah, so there are a number of different ways that you can integrate with Stytch. We are API first, and so you can always integrate just directly with our APIs, whatever language. If you can make HTTP requests from it, you can integrate Stytch into it. We also have some backend SDKs that wrap that API to make it more ergonomic. But really, any language, it can be supported. You might just have to do a little bit more legwork to integrate that into a language that we don't have something pre-built for. But we also have client-side SDKs so that we can handle more of the logic for you, things like setting sessions, refreshing sessions, all of that. So we have two options there on the client-side integration. You can either do a headless integration. So if you really want to own, all of the UI UX of your app, you can do a client-side integration and basically use the headless SDK so that you're still getting that out of the box sort of session management, handling sort of like all the API calls, but owning the UI. But a lot of times you want to get up and running really quickly, right? Like building a login box is not super interesting and differentiated in most cases. And so we have front-end components as well. And we have a couple options there. We have just a plain JavaScript SDK. We have a Next.js SDK, and then we have a React SDK. So those are sort of the options on the front-end integration. And then in terms of what you're doing on the back end, it's pretty limitless there in terms of what languages you're using. Got it.
Okay, cool. And so today, then, if I wanted to build my front end in React, and then if we get to the back end parts, do that in like Node and Express, we're going to be okay?
Yeah, exactly. We can use the front-end components in the React SDK, and then we have a Node backend SDK that we can integrate.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think at this point, any other questions I have are going to be easier answered by showing some code. So why don't I quickly take us over here, and let me throw this banner up as well. And then first and foremost, if you are not already following Julianna, you should be. So get over there on Twitter and give this account a follow. And we are talking today about Stytch. So make sure that you go and check it out today. Getting some compliments on your pups in the
Very important.
Yes, that is a very cute dog. Okay, and let's see what else we got here. I have one other thing that I need to do, which is to give a quick shout out to our captioner. We've got Rachel here from White Coat Captioning, and that is available at the URL there at the bottom of the screen. Let me also throw that into the chat. There it goes. Okay, so if you want to get the captions, you can get to those there. That is made possible through the support of our sponsors. We've got NX and Netlify both kicking in to make the show more accessible to more people, which I very much appreciate. Okay, so with that being said, Julianna, if I want to get going here, what should I do first?
Yeah, let's start at Stytch.com and go ahead and we can start building. So this will take you to our sign up. We use Stytch, obviously, for our own login, dog food, our product in a lot of ways. So this is the Stytch dashboard where you can do all of your configuration, get API keys, all of that. And when you're creating a project, we basically decided at that point, is this going to be a consumer authentication project where, again, that user is the primary sort of object in the data model, or do you want to do a B2B app where it's an organization first data model? So yeah, we want to do B2B.
And this is cool because I feel like in other apps that I've used that are kind of in the same space, I haven't seen this differentiation where you've got sort of like you get to choose, is this a B2C or a B2B app? So that's really cool. Okay.
Awesome.
So I've created a new project, and now I'm ready, I think.
Sweet. Let's maybe get started by spinning up the app that we're going to be integrating Stytch into, and then we can go from there.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head into my GitHub, and then we're going to make a directory called Stytch B2B SaaS. Apparently, I already have one of those, so we're going to call this LWJ. Then we're going to get into that. And can I use Vite? Is that all right?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so I'm going to do a create Vite at latest and set it up in here. We'll use React today, TypeScript, install my dependencies, and there we go. Okay, so why don't I stack these for a minute, because I think we're going to need to do a lot here. But let me get over to the Vite project. So here's our brand new, no features Vite project. And I'm going to open this folder that I just created. Okay. So we've got that now. And inside I have the basics. It's an app.tsx. It's got all of this good stuff in here. I'm just going to drop all of this out, and instead we'll say build an app. oh, I stopped my server when I opened that folder. There we go. Okay, so this is our baseline app here. I might just start clearing everything out because I don't think we really need any of this yet. So we'll start as simple as we possibly can. And we're not using any of this. Like, let's just clean this thing up. And our main.tsx has all the basics there. Okay, so what's my next step here?
Sweet. So let's go to the Stytch docs, and we have some quick start guides there, so we can kind of follow. They'll give us some code snippets to help make this easy.
Okay, so here's the docs.
Yeah, if you click on docs there under B2B SaaS, exactly. So we'll have kind of like an overview and all of that here. What we're gonna be doing today is we want to build an OAuth integration with what we call our discovery flow. So that means that that experience of like you log in and then you can see, all of the organizations that you can join. That's what that discovery flow means. So if you scroll down under authentication there, under UI components, sorry.
Oh, here, got it.
Under UI components, implement the discovery flow. Yeah, exactly. So this will be a guide for getting that UI integration up and running. The other thing that we might want to take a look at is if you scroll up a little bit more on the sidebar on the left-hand side there, we can do a React quick start too, just to get the sort of basics of Stytch integrated. So under frameworks, there's a React quick start that'll tell us how to sort of do the basic Stytch integration. So
got it.
We can start there and get Stytch installed.
Okay, so let's see. You got to actually stop the server first. So we're installing the Stytch Vanilla.js and React packages. Then I need to set up, it looks like a .env. So I can do that over here. Oops. And in my .env, I'm going to need the Stytch project env, and I assume this stays as test.
Yeah, well, we can use test for this, and then you'll need that public token to instantiate the client-side SDK.
Okay, and for me to get that public token, I'm going to go to...
On the left, API keys, yep. And down at the bottom.
Okay, so here's the public token, and this one's okay to share because it says it's public.
Yeah, it's meant to be something that can be, visible client-side.
Got it. And then back out here, we've set that up. Now we need to configure the Stytch SDK settings, enable front-end SDKs in your Stytch dashboard. And front-end SDKs, I can enable the SDK. Great. I need to edit this because that's the wrong port. And so that instead is going to be 5173 for Vite. All right. And then do I need any of these others here? I probably need to be able to.
We're going to want that switched on so that when you're logging in, signing up, you can create a new organization to join.
Okay. And do I need member actions and permissions?
Yeah, let's turn that on too.
Okay. And then let's see, we've got email magic links, SSO. What is this, time-based one-time passwords? Is that right?
Yeah, so like Google Authenticator type passwords.
Got it. OAuth passwords and then SMS one-time passwords. Okay. This I don't need to worry about, right?
Yeah, those are all kind of advanced settings that you can configure, but we don't need them out of the box.
Got it. Okay. So then now that we're set up here, it's even said if I had come back to the docs, it would have said turn this on. So then we're going to create the UI client, and this will happen, looks like right in the root of our project. So I'm going to grab this out, and then we'll head into our main.tsx. And then we're going to grab our Stytch client. And then we're going to actually use that provider. Okay, so just recapping here, we pulled in the React provider and we pulled in the B2B UI client. And so the reason it's B2B is because this is like flipping that whole architecture where it's org first versus user first.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's a slightly different than integration pattern. We have different underlying APIs so that we can do that org first data model out of the box for you.
Got it. And then we're just wrapping our entire app with that provider and sending in the client that we created that uses our public token. Okay. All right. This all makes sense. I'm feeling good. And then we have UI components. So we're going to do a login or sign up. All right. And why don't I just copy this one straight up? And we're going to create, probably just set this up as a new component because we might use it in multiple places. Or what do you think? Should we try to keep this all in like one big pile so it's easier to track what's going on?
Yeah, that probably is helpful just for ease of looking back and forth. You're going to need to end up using this component both when you sort of initialize the login page, and then we'll need to reload it on sort of the OAuth redirect to complete that discovery flow. So you will end up using this component multiple times, but the same config settings will work for both.
Got it. Okay. So let's start here and let's just see what we got. Did I stop my server again? I did. Did I miss a step? Cannot read properties of undefined reading includes. All right. What did I miss?
I think it might be the public token.
Expected a string, got undefined. You can find your public token. Okay.
I think it needs to be prefixed with V.
Oh, right. It needs to be public, whatever it is. Do I need this one to be the same?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and then I need to get back into our main.tsx, and this one is going to be there. Hey, there we go.
Nice.
Okay, so now we've got kind of a built-in thing, and if I set up okay, so we just kind of keep getting guided here. And I need to add this website as a domain for the Stytch SDK. So I'm going to come back here and I do that.
I think under front end SDKs.
Oh, it didn't say, I didn't save my change apparently. Save. There we go. All right, now you're going to work, right?
Hopefully.
Okay. So that sent me an email, which is over on my other screen here. And my login request. is in my email. Let me pull this over for a quick second. Can't pull this over for a quick second. Here. So there's my login request. And then I guess I can click this from here. Did my site stop again? No, we should be okay. Oh, right. Now it's going to give me like a redirect, and we haven't actually set those up yet. So we need to build this route for this to function. Okay. So is this the sort of thing that I need to set up like a router, or how do we handle the...
Yeah, so you're going to want to set a redirect URL from the Stytch dashboard. So if you want to go back to the docs and that React quick start that we were walking through, that'll give you some instructions there.
Got it. So by default, so if the Stytch B2B component is rendered on the redirect URL, the email magic link token will automatically be authenticated. Override the default by passing an explicit email magic links option discovery redirect URL. So I pass that in here.
Yes, exactly. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set it in the dashboard regardless, and we can set it as default, and then it'll just work. But we can also, like, if you have different use cases where you might want to specify different URLs, you'll be able to do that from code as well. So yeah, we're going to want to add a redirect route that
and like, can I just send it to the home page?
Yeah, exactly. That will work. What you're going to end up needing to do is, so basically you're going to want to have this redirect URL, and then on the page that it redirects to, we're going to want to instantiate the front end component again. And what that's going to do is that's going to take that magic link token from the redirect URL, and it's going to parse that, and it's going to set the session. So what I would recommend doing is having a route that is maybe called Authenticate, and then once we do that sort of redirect, we'll then, after that, redirect to the homepage of the dashboard.
Okay, got it. So let's see. So if we start here, then we'll be able to handle the like token exchange part, and then once we detect that they're logged in, we can set a redirect to the dashboard page.
Yeah. So what I would do for this first URL that we're setting is call it something like /authenticate, and this is going to be for that discovery flow that we were talking about. So basically, you'll click the magic link. It'll handle that redirect if we instantiate that component again, and then it'll pop up the screen where you can choose between the different organizations that you're a member of, and then from there finish the login. And so then we'll want to redirect to the home page.
So then I'm going to want to set up like React Router or something here.
Yeah, that probably makes sense.
Okay, so let's get. Did you have a preferred way to do this, or like a snippet or something you want me to use, or should I just kind of let it rip?
I think, yeah, let it rip, whatever makes sense to you.
All right, so let's get into probably the quick start here, because all we need is a really simple setup. And I'm going to, what do I need to install? Just React Router DOM. Easy enough. Come on. Let me actually, I just want to, there we go. All right, so npm install React Router DOM, and then hide this bit. And up here, we're going to go with basic routing, which is all we need. And so let's get all of these. And I think what I mean by get all of those is I'm going to take this bit first. We'll drop these all up here. And then I'm going to take the router bit. And we're going to put that in here. Move this part probably to for now, I'll probably just stick it right there. What are you mad about? Oh, I forgot to actually put all the imports in. So I need this part. React Router DOM has no import. What? Uh-oh. What have I done? How does one make sure that I'm looking at the right version of the docs? Tutorial, examples, basic. That's what I want. Oh yeah, we've like completely changed how React Router works. So we're going to get the new example and then get these routes. Drop these in here. Yeah, what's going on? We don't want. Okay, and then so the layout goes here. Okay, I'm kind of following with, yeah, it's been a while since I've used React Router, so. Copy these, come up here. What have I done? I've made this so confusing. Oh no. Okay, I know what I did, kind of. I messed up that part because that wasn't supposed to be the piece there. This comes down here. We end up with our app, right? And then in our layout, we need the sign up or login, or what is it called? Login or sign up? Okay. All right. And now we need to actually set these up to be a thing. So we need the authenticate page. That's not really going to be, that's not the part I care about. What I care about is the router itself. So authenticate should pull up the authenticate component, which we'll need to make. And then you said we'll have a dashboard component. Do I need any others while I'm doing this right now?
Yeah, that should be good. And for the authenticate page, you're just going to need to reinstantiate the login or sign up component.
Okay.
So you can just call that the same way.
Got it. Okay, so.
And then we're going to want to do a redirect after that succeeds, basically, to the dashboard. We'll need to handle that on our end.
Okay, so I can do that. So login or sign up here, login or sign up here, and then we've got the dashboard here, which we need to protect. And then this no match, I'm just going to kind of ignore. So theoretically speaking, then, this will get us don't actually want to link to that, and we don't need that. So if I've done this properly, we should get our home and our dashboard. Okay. Got to actually start the app again. And I've done something wrong. Use routes may be used only in the context of a router component. Where did I use routes? Crap. What did I do? Routes. Stytch B2B provider. Oh, do I have to set up a... There's my layout. There's my routes. What have I done? Does anybody know what I've done? Router around routes.
I can also send, I do have a pretty basic snippet on this, so if that's helpful, maybe we just go with that.
Might be, considering I'm... Oh, you know what I bet I did? We got to add this browser router. Yeah, okay. All right. I think this will work. So we've got our browser router, and then we need to stick that browser router around the app. We'll make sure that the router has access to any Stytch stuff for when we want to do our setup there. And then, haha, look at you go. Okay, so now like nothing's protected, but we can go to our home, we can go to our dashboard. And when I go to authenticate, okay, I think it's going to send me another email here. I don't know if those are going to stack, and I don't want to show you my whole inbox. So everybody just trust me that this worked. I'm coming back over here for my new login email. Here it is. And it sent to local host, but if I delete the secure part, okay. So we need to fix whatever I did to put the HTTPS into the local host. But the fact that we're here means that we're creating an organization. And now I've successfully logged in. Okay, so this is the part where I would need my redirect.
Yeah, we'll need to build a redirect here based on the callback that we're getting from the Stytch SDK.
Got it. Okay, so what I'm getting back from the Stytch SDK, I assume it's going to talk about that in this setup here. Or no?
We might need a different guide for that piece. 1 second.
Okay. So just to recap, because I feel like I kind of got all over the place there for anybody who's watching, and also for me, we did two things just now. So we've wrapped our whole app. This is like the root of our app. We've wrapped it with the Stytch provider and the browser router so that we have access to React Router. And then we have the Stytch provider around React Router so that we'll be able to do things like a protected route when we get to that point. Then inside of our app, we have this login or sign up component. The login or sign up component is what's doing all of that magic that we saw in our app with these components, like these little UI bits are all kind of pre-built. We don't have to do anything. They just work. Then we have our layout. So this is kind of like the basic structure of our page. And in React Router, it's kind of passed into the top. So we've got navigation, and then we've got an outlet, which is whatever the page content is. Then we've got our home page, our authenticate page, and our dashboard page. whenever these pages are reached in the router, this is what shows up in the outlet. Then we've got the app itself where we have our routes. And then we're looking for the default route. So slash is we use the layout for it. And then if it's the index route, so just slash on its own, we show home. If it's the authenticate path, we show authenticate. Dashboard path, we show dashboard. And then this one down here is for a 404 page. Everybody got that? Okay. So now what we need to do is we are successfully creating our account here, but we need to catch some event from it, right?
Yeah,
and then
that's right.
Okay. And to do that, am I looking for, let's see.
I sent you a code snippet in our chat.
Yeah, it looks like it got cut off. So we might need to do that in like like oh yeah, you can do it in Slack for sure.
Cool. There's documentation for this too, if you go to the SDK reference, but I think for the purposes of this, I can talk through what that code snippet that I just sent over is doing. It's basically just configuring callbacks when we instantiate that.
Okay, so let's look at this and see what I'm missing here. So we've got, this is coming from React Router. This one here, I believe, is coming from Stytch Vanilla B2B. This one, same, it's coming from Vanilla B2B. What else? Okay, so then the code itself, we've got our discovery component.
Yeah, so you could rename that Authenticate because we're doing this on the Authenticate page. The example I have is, using.
Got it. Okay, so let me move this down to take the place of our existing Authenticate. Okay, and so what this one's doing is we're saying we're using the OAuth product, session duration, we're using the discovery flow, and then once we've redirected, we go to the Authenticate page.
Yeah.
And then we've got a callback. So this is like, once I log in, send me here.
That's just the initial instantiation, which doesn't matter for this purposes. But what we'll want to do is change that to email magic links because that's what we've been using email magic links. This example is using OAuth, but you can delete that line, the providers, you can delete the whole OAuth options actually object.
Okay.
And then under products up at the top of that config, where it says B2B products, email magic links. Exactly.
Got it. Okay. And so then what we're doing is setting up on event. And if somebody has created an organization or exchanged their intermediate session. And so an intermediate session, that's like, because of the way the discovery flow works, I log in partially because I kind of log in with my email, but then I still haven't chosen an organization yet, right? That's what the discovery flow is about. Exactly.
And so once you choose that organization, we'll create a session that's actually tied to that organization. But you're, in no man's land until you've chosen to log into a specific organization.
Got it. And so the intermediate session is like, this is enough authentication that you can see which organizations you belong to, but you can't do anything else until you've chosen an org.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, great. And in both cases, once we get the thing, we have a full session, so we go to the dashboard.
Yep,
so
exactly.
Assuming, let's see, we don't need, I'm not really using this data, so I'm going to drop it so it stops yelling at me. Okay, and then we had one more thing yelling at me up here. That's the one we're not using anymore, and no more tiers. Okay, so now I am back on my home page here, and I'm going to log in. So it takes me there. I'm going to go to my email. and my magic link's going to come through. I think my magic link's going to come through. Where are you at? There it is. Okay. Clicking my link. Oh, I need to go fix that. But I can fake it by just going through here. So it says select an organization. Now I already created an organization last time, so I'm going to click this, but I could create a second team if I wanted. So I click through and now I'm on the dashboard. Yes. Okay. So we now have the ability, and actually, why don't I, well, we'll wait until I have the ability to log out before we before we go further on this. But that's pretty cool. Like we now have like a full multi-tenant login flow where you sign in with your email and then you're able to access one of your organizations, or you can create a different one. So you actually get the ability to do quite a bit, honestly. Like that's pretty cool. So if I do this again, actually, will it let me create another one? Click through here and fix my protocol error. And then I'm going to create another organization. And now I'm in another organization. Oh, I wonder what it did if it... Okay, so now when I log in, one more time with these protocol errors before I go and fix them for real. Now I have two organizations. So we'll add the ability as we go here to actually edit some of these things. But for the time being, that's pretty slick that we're able to just like do that. Okay, so y'all, this is very cool. What should we do next? Like now that we have the ability to log in and select an org, we are not, so there's a few things on my to-do list. One, we need to protect this route, because right now, even if you're logged out, you can still come to this dashboard. Mm-hmm. So we'll want to protect the route. I don't have a way to see which org I'm in. I'm missing a couple options, like, I don't know how much time we'll have for all of these things, but like I don't have a way to invite new users to my org or manage those users or set their, like, whether or not they're admins. All of these things. Can I do all of that stuff with Stytch UI components?
You can do a lot of that, but not quite everything with
Okay.
the UI components. Some things like managing users, we're working on building the components for that right now, but today you'd have to do that with the backend integration.
Very, very cool. Okay. Next is fix the protocol. Good call. Let me go and do that real quick. There it is. Will it just let me?
We'll have to recreate it. We don't let you delete, unfortunately.
Got it. Okay, so that's correct. And then I'm just going to drop these that we don't use.
And something we can do while we're in the dashboard, we can go look at your users too that you've created.
Oh, right, yeah.
So, yeah, if you go to members there, you can see the two users. If you click on that email there, it should open up more details. Yeah, so you can see, status. You can see event logs if you want to dig in, if something's going wrong. Yeah, tons of details there. You can see the roles that you have, the sessions.
And so because I created these orgs, I'm automatically an admin, which makes sense. And then we've got sessions. Let me revoke all my sessions. Let me go to my other member. that was the first one I looked at. Let me revoke these sessions. And now I think we're logged out. So what we should be able to do now is when we put the protection in, it should bounce us back to the home page once that's there. Anything else we need to fix in the dashboard before we keep going?
No, I think we can, let's protect that route.
All right, let's do it. What's my protocol for such a thing?
Yeah, so what we're gonna wanna do here is basically we'll use what's called the Stytch member session, and we can get a bunch of information with that. I'll send a link in the chat to the session management reference. Oh,
Okay.
It's not posting, huh? Okay, I sent it to the private chat. Wasn't working in the other, but.
All right, so I'll repost it here. And then I'll head over to that section of the docs, make this a little bigger. And okay, so we get the use Stytch member session. That gives us the access to the session, at which point we can see what's going on. Okay, so why don't we just duplicate this straight up on our dashboard for now so that we can just prove that we're logged in. And then we'll get to actually doing stuff within this setup. Yeah, why don't we'll just do that exactly. And then for this, I need to bring it in from React B2B. Did I do it? Use member session. Okay. So now when I go to the dashboard, it says no active session. Great. So that means we're not logged in and it should be bouncing us. And then to protect a route in React Router, let's see. I feel like we just did this and I forget what the exacts are. I'm a little less concerned about like how React Router works. So why don't we cheat and go look at that cool Stytch example? Is this the one that has the... I just want the routes. Somewhere down here, there's like a actual protected route thing. Router. Wait, is this not... Where are we? Well, that should... What are you doing? Stop it. Let's go back here. There was the UI example one, I thought. Pre-built UI example. And I think that has the React Router thing in here, if I can find it. I hope. Let's get down to the routes. Protected route. This is what I'm looking for. So here, oh my goodness, please stop. Then we get this protected route. And the way that we use the protected route is we wrap the whole dashboard piece inside of that. Yeah, okay, that's right. That's right. I remember how this works now. So we have our protected route, and we'll have to go back and figure out how all these pieces work. But then in the router, instead of doing it like this, we have the path and we say element is protected route. And then we need a sub route in here for the index, and that's going to be the dashboard. And so what that means is we're basically putting everything through this protected route layout. So we've kind of got the main layout, and then these pages don't need anything. Then this layout requires authentication before it puts stuff through. And we can see that here that it's kind of a pass through, or it navigates to the login page, which we're going to make our home page. So I need to bring in all the stuff that we're actually using, which this is from React Router DOM. The use effect has to come in from React, and from cache and session. Why are you yelling at me? Navigate. Whatever you want, React. Okay. So then, if there's no session, we want to navigate to the home page, I believe. Okay, so if I did that right, when I go to the dashboard, it will say, you don't have a session, and it bounces me to home. Now, the other problem I have is that I screwed something else up. Failed to execute push state. Okay, so something almost worked. Above error. What if I just don't do that part? Yeah, we're just going to ignore that part because that's sort of an advanced like navigation thing. So we'll just send you home and everything is fine. So not logged in. Now we go to the, oh wait. Oh no. That's the mismatch. Because it's not actually called home. I'm holding it together, I promise. Okay. So now we get to the home page. Good. Okay. I think I did that in two places though. So navigate to home. So now when you navigate, you end up at the home page because you're not logged in. And if I log in and I go find my email somewhere, and I click, and now we don't get a protocol error, and I log into my org, and we get a member session. Look at us go. Okay, so in a relatively short span of time, even with me not remembering how React Router works, we've been able to get, like, this is an authenticated app. We now have the ability to let people log in to different organizations and have protected sessions. That's pretty cool. So, Juliana, the next thing that we want to do is what?
Maybe what we can show is using RBAC to just grant resource access to various things. We can start with just like maybe printing it out for the sake of time, but can also show how that could be used, to grant different access levels to different routes.
Yeah, let's do it. So I'm going to close these up and we'll get in here. So we've got our session. And then in our member session, I guess I would say current member role. And so I want to replace this with their, I guess, like that. So I want to replace their role with their actual role. And is that the sort of thing that I can just like grab? Like if I go to session dot roles, hey, this is looking easy. Concat. Is it that easy? Oh my God, it is. I did use the wrong thing. That's better. There we go. So if we join these, we can see my roles. That happened too fast now. Okay. So then what? What should we do next?
Yeah, let's create a custom resource that maybe the admin role can access.
Okay.
So we can go to the dashboard to do this. And if you go to roles and permissions, yeah, okay. So these are the default roles that we have. Like you said, like if you create an org, you'll be admin by default. You can also create your own roles here, right? So maybe you want, read only, that sort of thing. For this, we can just do a resource though. So resource are things that you have access to. There's some default ones that Stytch uses, but if you go create new resource, yeah, so we can create a resource here. And then under actions, you probably want to do like, I would do like create, maybe, yeah.
And maybe we can just do like a create and read for the sake of time.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. All right. So I have we can boop, and you can create a boop or read a boop. And then if I want to, I guess, what do I do next?
Yeah. So what we're going to want to do is basically look at the permissions that your session has, and then we can use that to determine what you have access to.
Okay.
Did we assign? We'll need to assign, the resource to either the member or admin role as well.
So I think what I would like to do is let's have the Stytch member be able to read boops, and then the admin can do both. So admin can, let's see, add a role, boop, and wildcard so that we don't have to do it all. And now that means that they can do everything within the boop resource, right?
Sounds good.
Okay. So then in here, let me start closing a few of these duplicates. In here we have, we can see these, but we don't have any like indication of the specific permissions. So what I want it to be, or I guess how would I go about sort of interacting with this?
Yeah, let me send you docs on this that we can walk through. I don't know why it's not letting me post to the main chat, but sent that over.
Okay. Drop this link in the chat. And there we go. Okay, so I have just a hook that I can use. All right, so let me copy this here and do one of these. That does come out of the React B2B. That's where I got it. Okay. And then on our dashboard, we can say is authorized. Oh my goodness, what am I doing? Comes out of use Stytch is authorized. And then we get the resource and the action. So I guess in this case, the different one would be create. And so then we can say if they are authorized, we can do like an is authorized. Okay, so once we get out here, then now we can see they have the create permission, so they're a super booper. All right, okay. And then if I were to go and change this, and I guess we probably don't have enough time to like fully get in and delete all this, but what I can do is edit this and let's delete this one, and instead they'll get boop read. Okay, so they've got the ability to read but not create. So when I come back out here, they are now a regular booper because they do not have permission to create boops. Okay. There's a question about SSO. For SSO, I think we just turn it on, right?
Yeah, you just turn it on. We have guides for getting different IDPs set up. So, if you're using Google Workspace, Okta, whatever it might be, you can just turn it on.
And where is that in here? I know there's like a section for...
So we'll want to make sure under front-end SDKs that we have SSO enabled. I think we do. I think in test we default all of them enabled. And then if you go back to where you're instantiating that client, you can just add that. We could add OAuth.
So here I would just turn on more things.
Yeah, exactly.
So like I can do OAuth, I can turn on so email magic links, OAuth, passwords, or SSO. And when I I'm going to save that, and let's go back out here. And if I go home,
we might need,
we haven't configured any OAuth, but
we need more settings there. I can send you.
So if I go to my OAuth and I say like, let's configure this, test my connection, embed this URL into your application as a button. Wait. Well, actually, better question. Given that we probably have about 10 minutes left, is this the right thing to show, or do we want to show something else?
That's a good question. It will only take a few minutes to do Google OAuth, so we could show that really quickly. I'm not sure that there's anything else that we exactly have time for that's really interesting. I think we got through a good amount of stuff here. So yeah, maybe let's just show this so that you can see how easy it is to add additional login options.
Okay, great. So then for me to do that, I embed this URL into your application as a button. Is this the one?
It'll work with the front-end SDK if you go to visit guide under test your connection. So if you want to just send me that URL, we can use my GCP account to get this going.
Okay, sending it to you in that back channel.
1 minute.
So here's the steps. So you go to GCP, configure your consent screen, and then you get your credentials. So you need your API key, client ID, et cetera, et cetera. And then the redirect URI, which is this one here, you copy paste into that field. And then if you want the Stytch SDK to support Google One Tap, then you need that bit as well. And so that's how that works.
We have redirect URL set up already. So hit next. I saved the one you sent me. So yeah, you'll need to put client ID secret in there.
So I'm going to hide my screen for a second while I grab those details. Oops. Copy that link. And copy this bit here. Okay. So that's finished. And now if I think I missed something. So let me pull this back up because I'm reloading and it's not showing.
Yeah, I think there's one more thing we need to add
Gotcha.
to config in code. So if you go back to where you in code where you're instantiating, so if you want to add, it'll be OAuth options under added as an additional object. And then under providers, so you're going to want there an array, you're going to want providers, and then that's going to be an array. And then if you do B2B OAuth providers.google.
Got it. Okay. So then we come around here and now I can log in with Google. Let's give it a shot.
Nice.
Can only be used within its organization. Oh, yeah, that makes sense because
test account GCP.
Test accounts. And this is actually a really good thing because this is the sort of thing that avoids like me being shady, putting up a site that sort of looks like another site and then trying to get you to log in with your Google credentials so that I can get access to some of your stuff. Like it just, you gotta be ready to do this stuff for real. And this is good. So you can test, but you can't test outside of your own org, which is the right way to go, I think. So all of that to say this, if this was my org, if I had set this up, it would allow me to log in. But given that we are not on the same account, we'll just use the email magic link. And then SSO would be the same thing. If I had an Okta account or whatever set up, I could configure it to be the IDP or the identity provider for Stytch, and then it would do the whole thing. But that's not hard. It's just a lot of like, okay, now copy paste this field over to this field, and then this field over to this field, and now you're working. But that is great. So. Okay, we have probably not enough time to build something, but maybe we can talk a little bit about how a backend would work. And we've got these demos. So we worked together on kind of building out some demos. And I think I don't know if these are deployed anywhere that you can see, but like this is sort of it's like a kind of a linear clone demo app, right? And so it gives you this kind of like big purpley gradienty thing, and then it you can log in, and then when you get your dashboard, you have the ability to like add and remove ideas, and also manage your team members and all of those sorts of bits. And this is set up in two different ways. So I'll look at the one that I know best, which is the headless example. And so once we get like the front end, so this is interesting too, because in our app, what you and I just did, we were using like pre-made Stytch UI stuff, no, like kind of letting Stytch handle everything. In this version, this repo, which let me send a link to this one. There you go, Bruno. Then in this one, this is done with none of the pre-built Stytch stuff. So everything is built using like, let's see if I can even find all these bits. So everything is kind of pulled out with the Stytch, the vanilla stuff, but there's none of the React UI in. So this is how you would sort of add Stytch retroactively to an existing React project where you already had your UI built up and all those good bits. And the cool part about this one is that we were able to put together a whole backend for it too. So this is like a Node Express app. And if we look at the API, it does like a very basic get an idea, create an idea, all done with, the most simplified thing that I could think of as a Express API. So I think it's using SQLite. Yeah, so it's using SQLite, so you can run it locally. And then the schema on it is very, very straightforward. It's the text of the idea, it's the status of the idea, who created it, and what team they're on. And then out here, as you're, doing all of your CRUD action stuff, you can also load your team. And this is all done using these Stytch SDK. So this is the Stytch Node SDK. So it lets me like search for a member given the organization ID, so I can get the full list. And then you just pass in this the Stytch session, which is a cookie. You then get, like, I think I simplified the deal, so you get the ID, name, email, status, roles. You can get your team settings, and your team settings allow you to control like whether or not people can send email invites, what auth methods are allowed, what email domains are allowed to join this org, whether or not you can let somebody like join the org if they've got the right email domain. This is a really cool one, that just-in-time provisioning for emails. What we allow for auth methods, so on and so forth. And so all of this is like, if you wanted to manually control all of it and set all of those pieces, you can do that. And then a lot of this stuff, you said, Julianna, is managed through some of the like headless components, not all of it, but the React components will give me the ability to not have to build these manually.
Yeah, exactly. We'll handle a bunch out of the box for you today, and we're continuing to build more things, and always love feedback too. So if there's something that we're not handling out of the box that you'd like to see us do, or other functionality, we always love to hear that.
Yeah. And this is another, like, if you wanted to implement your own redirect flow and you're doing it on a Node app instead of on your front end, this is what the Stytch UI component is doing for you. But we're able to, load the Stytch client. We, check for what types of responses are allowed. So discovery flow, magic links, OAuth. You go through and you can kind of do all these bits, and then we can do things like get the intermediate token and exchange it. You can figure out what orgs they're in a part of, and then we're saving some cookies and all that good stuff. But the same thing, you're selecting which team you want to be part of. You can switch teams. So there's a team switcher. There's the ability to register a new account, the logout. So it's all kind of that API first approach, and then the SDKs wrapping the API make this feel really kind of nice to work with. And we barely scratched the surface with what we were able to do in our React app, but it is pretty cool that in the span of about hour 15 minutes, we got a React app stood up that has a protected dashboard route that's handling Google OAuth, or would be if I had my own credentials in there. It's handling the password, like the magic link email login flow, and it's handling roles where I can quickly, assign and remove roles. So for somebody who wants to take this further and who wants to kind of get deeper in here, what should they do next? Like, where should people go after this?
Yeah, so you can find a ton of resources, Stytch.com, our docs, all of that. Really encourage people to, if they're trying out Stytch, building with it, to join our developer Slack. Chris, who has been super helpful here, he's the head of dev success for us, and so him and the team are super helpful. And we love feedback there. We're happy to work through integrations with you and all of that. I'm on Twitter. Jason sent it earlier, so you can feel free to DM me on Twitter as well. And happy to chat and help you get up and running with Stytch and build some cool B2B apps.
Yeah, and this was super fun. I feel like it can be kind of like intimidating as somebody who wants to build a side hustle or whatever to get into this, like, this whole world of like, oh, I need to set up multi-tenancy, I need RBAC, I need, there's all these words, these acronyms that we know are important. Eventually you need to support SSO if you want to get big clients. So having something that will just sort of let you get running fast and it just sort of makes that stuff go away. Because what I want to focus on as a dev is the idea that I have for my SaaS app, not the boilerplate that makes my SaaS app function. And it's also like, it just stresses me out when I start thinking about like the security of all this stuff. Like, how do I structure the user data? How do I make sure that I'm compliant with all the various regulatory things that need to be done with user data? Like, I am not an expert in that. And it's ideal that I don't have to be. Like, my preference is to hire somebody who can do that. Now, I can't afford somebody's salary, but I can afford a tool like Stytch that will solve that, kind of makes this whole category of problems go away. Anyways, Julianna, anywhere else that you want people to go before we wrap this one up?
No, I think we got it covered. Yeah.
All right. Well, let me send one more shout out to our sponsors, NX and Netlify, for covering the captioning. We've had Rachel here with us from White Coat Captioning all day. Thank you again, Rachel, for being here. And thank you all for hanging out. Make sure while you're checking out things on the site that you go and check out the schedule, because we've got some really good stuff coming up. This episode next week actually got changed, and Brandon is going to come back, I believe, on the 30th. But we've got a great surprise episode that I'll have details on shortly, happening next Thursday. It's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you mark your calendars and go, just like whatever, get on the newsletter, get in the Discord, get on the whatever thing it is, and make sure that you hit that like button, because it really helps me out. It helps more people discover the show, and we can all have a little more fun building more fun stuff for the internet. Julianna, thank you so much for taking some time to hang out with us today. Any parting words for the chat?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you as well. This was super fun, and hope we can simplify auth for some people so that they can get back to focusing on building really cool, interesting products.
Awesome. Well, Julianna, thank you so much. As always, chat, thank you for hanging out. We will see you all